Good evening, and welcome to the Solstice MFA program's Writing for Young People Reading, featuring 3 of our graduates who recently published books. I'm Quentin Collins, the program's assistant director. I am a Black male with a teal polo shirt, I would say teal, and medium length dreadlocks in front of a pretty blank wall and with some coat hooks in the back. And before we really get into it, I would like to note that we acknowledge that the territory on which Pine Manor College stands is that of the Pawtucket and the Massachusetts people. Pine Manor's campus is a place to honor and respect the history and continued efforts of the Native and Indigenous community leaders, which make up Eastern Massachusetts and the surrounding region. This statement is one small step in acknowledging the history that brought us to reside on the land and to help us seek understanding of our place within that history. Ownership of land is itself a colonial concept. Many tribes had seasonal relationships with the land we currently inhabit. Today, Chestnut Hill is home to Indigenous peoples, including the Nipmuc Nations and the Massachusetts people. For more information, please visit the Massachusetts Center for Native American Awareness and the Commission on Indian Affairs of the state of Massachusetts. Tonight's reading features our graduates, Heather Christie, Kimberly Kreines, and Kimberly Mitchell, who have all published a book within the past couple of years and in different formats too. We'll get to that in a moment. I will introduce each reader and then they will read for 15 minutes. As I introduce the reader, we will post links to purchase their books in the chat. And we will begin with Heather Christie. Heather is the National Indie Excellence Award-winning author of the young adult novel, What the Valley Knows, and the producer of the national storytelling phenomenon, Listen to Your Mother, Greater Burks. Her second novel, The Lying Season, debuted on Amazon bestseller in young adult soccer fiction. She holds an MFA in creative writing from Pine Manor College in Boston. Her essays have been published in Salon, Next Tribe, Writer's Digest, Baltimore Style, Scary Mommy, and Elephant Journal. Heather lives in New York City, but a piece of her heart remains in her small hometown near Reading, Pennsylvania. Find Heather on her website and on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Heather.
Thank you. I'm going to read from my first book, What the Valley Knows, and I'm going to read the very first page, the prologue, and then I'm going to skip to the back, and I'm going to read the end. So you'll fill in someday if you want to read it. So prologue. Molly Hanover lifted her chin. The pain was so sharp, her head slammed down onto the muddy gravel. Her teeth gashed her tongue, and the copper taste of blood filled her mouth. She closed her eyes, and the thump of her heartbeat pounded in her ears. This wasn't happening. She had to get up and find him. She needed to tell him something important. And her mother, she had decided she would tell her mother too. They would help her. At the edge of the field where she had fallen, a few unharvested corn stalks jutted skyward. Late autumn grass sprouted in the weedy undergrowth. She lay splayed face down, her arm twisted behind her back, raw pain searing through her right shoulder. Where was he? Again, she tried to raise her head, and tiny spurts of light exploded against the darkness. Chilly rain stung her cheek and blurred her vision. Her hair, matted with bits of glass, dirt, and blood, stuck to her neck. Help, she whispered. It was hard to concentrate, but she listened carefully, and she heard the soft ping of rain hitting her nylon jacket. Stay awake, she warned herself. Don't sleep. She rolled and she saw the wet road sparkle in the vehicle's headlights. Maybe it was a bad dream, but the pain was real. Hot blood burned through the cut in her cheek. Her mind raced. The sharp edge of panic pierced her memory. There was a secret, a thing unspeakable. But it was gone. Whatever she had wanted to tell them had vanished. And then her world went black. That's the first page. And now I'm going to flip to the end. The doorbell rang, followed by 3 solid knocks. At first, she didn't know where she was, and then she remembered Lisa was due. She pushed Derby, her cat, onto the sofa. Hold on, she said, I'm coming. She opened the door. Wade wore his Millington Valley varsity jacket and blue jeans. His bangs were pushed to the side, falling just over his right eyebrow. His nose and cheeks were red with cold. They stood in silence. For a moment, she forgot everything. She forgot the scar on her cheek, the dull ache in the back of her head, her short frizzy hair, and the pain in her hip. She forgot Peter and that horrible night. Wade. He was the only thing that was real, the only thing that mattered. She wanted to fall against him, the urge strong and ferocious. He had come for her. But then Derby meowed and snorted, and like that, the spell was broken. He touched her shoulder. Can we go for a walk? He paused. Please? Well, I only have a few minutes, she said. That's all I want. She stepped inside and slid Derby away from the door. She dressed quickly and slid into her sneakers. An old familiar flutter rose in her stomach. She closed the door and she went to Wade's left side, her good side. The wind bit through her scarf. They walked side by side, but not too close. The silent large between them. The street was quiet and bare. At the stop sign, Wade hesitated and then said, I know about Peter. You know, I'll kill him. I'll pound him into a bloody pulp if I ever see him. That's what I was going to tell you the night of the accident. She stepped off the curb. I thought you'd know what to do. I'm okay now, but I feel so dirty. I wish you could have told me. His voice cracked. You're not dirty. Don't say that. They passed the funeral home, and at the post office, he stopped. Let's sit. He pointed to the bench. The flagpole pulley clinged in the bitter breeze. He said, Did you get my email? I did, but I didn't open it. Why not? He pressed his fingers into his eyes. Why are you doing this to us? His voice broke. She bit her lip and dropped her chin. I don't know. It seems as if it has to be over. Us. Everything is different. I mean, both of us have so much to deal with, and I don't know what I feel or if I feel. She brushed her cheek. There's the things I have to take care of. I don't know if I can heal with someone watching me, even you. It's my fault. I really screwed everything up. Not just the wreck. I mean, lots of things. But I've changed. I'm taking school seriously like you wanted me to. I want to go to college and study something, not just football, maybe counseling or something like that. Maybe I can help people. I don't feel like me anymore. Her throat thickened. You'd be better off with someone else. She turned and looked at him. The light from the street lamp swam in his eyes. I mean, maybe not Missy. I mean, she's not a nice person, but a girl without any baggage. No way. You're the only person I want. I mean, you're the first thing I ever loved more than football. He gently cupped her cheek and smiled in his lopsided way. Give me another chance. And we'll take it slow. Then he pulled her scarf away from her face, and he traced the jagged mark on her cheek. I don't know, she said. I brought you this. He pulled her necklace from his pocket and placed it in her hand. She closed her eyes. Maybe life was giving up the hope that the past might have been different. And maybe the future was accepting the past for what it was and nothing more. Sometimes she could imagine herself leaving Millington Valley. Her hair would be long again, and her scar would fade. And well, she was the winner of the Pennsylvania Young Writers Contest, and that meant something. In these daydreams, she looked almost like she did before. But inside, she was different, strong. Where she was going did not matter, because she was setting out to make her own place in the world. And it was good. People reinvented themselves all the time, right? Maybe she was already reinvented. The seed of strength, even now, sprouting deep inside. Maybe she would let herself be that person. The person who could say yes, or who could say no, but who didn't know what to say right now. And maybe she didn't need to know yet. Maybe life got made day by day in little pieces, not all at once. Maybe one day she and Wade would sit somewhere like this on a cold, clean night, and so much would have happened. And they wouldn't think about when they were young and how they almost lost each other. Or maybe years in the future, when the late summer air turned crisp, Molly would only remember Wade as someone she had loved as a girl. He would be a memory, like her dad. But right now, Wade was real. And she didn't want to decide what couldn't be when they hadn't had a chance to find out. Wade leaned forward and rested his lips on the top of her head, like he used to do. He pulled her toward him, and she laid her palms against his chest and leaned in. And it's 7:15. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather, for that wonderful reading. And now we have the first, in this current order, because there is some dispute about the numbering of the Kimberlys. Kimberly J. Kreines is an author of science fiction and fantasy novels, short stories, and screenplays, as well as a world builder, having created dozens of fantastical worlds for the gaming properties Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. She has written over 15 pieces of short fiction for Magic, including stories featuring Magic's first neurodivergent heroine and first pair of lesbian werewolf slayers. You can find her most recent novel, Rise of the Aerolith, under the nom de plume, Harry George, in serialized installments published every Friday on the new platform, Kindle Vella, where she continues to strive for inclusivity and inspiration. Kimberly.
Thank you so much, Quentin. I'm Kimberly. I'm a Caucasian female with long blonde hair, and I'm sitting in front of a digital background of the stars. I'm thrilled to have been invited to read here tonight with all these other fabulous Solstice alum, And thank you to everyone in the audience who took time out of your busy holiday schedules and lives to be here. It means a lot. Tonight, I will be reading from my serialized novel, a passage that's important to me, which is a weird thing to say because they're all rather important considering every word was painstakingly written, but this one has an added layer of my soul. It deals with a character, Corey, who has a panic disorder. I have a panic disorder. So I'm writing what I know, as the saying goes, yes. But I'm also writing as a means of reaching out and hopefully starting a conversation with others who might deal with anxiety and panic themselves or know someone who does. When I was first diagnosed, I had a lot of assumptions about what a panic disorder meant. These were all based on media encounters with it, as well as the way our culture has treated panic and anxiety and other mental health issues. I assumed that my life was basically over. I assumed I would be incapable of a great many things. And I thought I would be a burden to the people in my life. I was wrong. The media was wrong. Our culture is mistaken. Over the many, many years of managing my panic disorder, I have learned a lot. The most important lesson being that there isn't anything I cannot do. That's not to say that some things won't be extremely challenging or even brutal, but what in life is easy? I've learned that I should not limit myself by some preconceived notion, and I've learned that panic doesn't define me. I've tried to incorporate these lessons into my fiction. I strive to write aspirational characters, especially for readers who might be going through some of the things I have. I want people to see that panic disorders and anxiety don't define you. They may always be something you have to manage and deal with. They may always cause pain and discomfort, to put it mildly, but they don't have to stop you. They don't stop Corey. She is still a strong person and she has a full and messy life, the best kind, in my opinion. This isn't a story about panic disorders, but one about a woman who happens to have a panic disorder, but is also living in a bunker, the aerolith, that is the last bastion of humanity after Earth's collapse, has a really cute animech named Sneak, has a mother who annoys her, and a sister, Lil, who she is searching for. This search has led Corey to a secret organization called the AFX, and the people there see her as the only hope to rescue her sister. So without further ado, here we go. Level E, AFX headquarters. Gorstaban catches part of Miranda's hollow with Claudine before she flicks it away. That's not what he needs her to be focused on right now. Corey is going to be fine, he says. Really, you shouldn't worry about her. Miranda swivels her chair so she can meet his gaze. I'm worried about you. Me? You sent a civilian with panic issues into known danger. That's not the Gorstaban I know. No, we discussed this. We agreed. And then we brought her in and she panicked. Miranda's stare hardens. You saw it. We don't know that she's stable. We don't know if she can handle this. She can. Gorstaban clears his throat, firming up his tone. I believe that she can. Believe? Is that the kind of flimsy hook you're hanging things on these days? Belief? What do you want me to say that I know? Of course I don't know with certainty that she can do this. I don't know anything with certainty, except that we're closer than ever to uncovering the truth, and I'm not going to lose this chance. Something beeps behind Miranda, a flashing hollow on her display. Are those, Gorstaban leans in to look more closely. Are those her vitals? I'm monitoring her response to the stress of the mission. Does she know? Safety is my priority. Miranda's perfect bridger features effuse resolve. I'm not going to lose another one. So she's going to pull Corey out. That's what she's really saying. All she needs to see is the slightest fluctuation in Corey's sinus rhythm and bam, the whole thing's over. Gorstaban can't let her do that. He can't let her compromise this mission, not now. He's considering his options when a ping comes through on his wrist port on an encoded back channel. Gorstaban reads it and his stomach knots. Alpha Kagan, damn it. He doesn't need any more issues right now. What is it? Miranda swivels back around. He shakes his head. He knows what will happen as soon as he tells her, but he also knows he can't hide it from her. This is too big. He lets out a long breath. The prints are compromised. That's it. Miranda slaps her thighs and stands. We have to call it off. No, Gorstaban reaches over to stop her from pinging Claudine and ending it before it even starts. We have to. It's over. They can't get into the maintenance shaft without those prints. Gorsteban clears his throat. He can't believe he's about to go down this road. That's not entirely true. Miranda scrutinizes him. He sees the exact moment she realizes what he's saying. You can't be serious. You're not going to pull kava. Gorsteban reaches into his hollow projection for the buried contacts lists, the one he's only used a handful of times in the last decade. His sleepers, his moles, his deepest plants. Gorsteban. I'm not going to let this mission die, Miranda. He flings up the hollow contact for agents Rena and Turi, Kava's handlers. We need box 4. Lift car, en route from level E to level H. Corey, Quadim, and Radix are dressed as couriers with Mary Carey hats and matching patches on the fronts of their navy blue jumpsuits. Both Quadim and Radix operate a hovering delivery mech stacked high with about a dozen packages. The packages are addressed to the last pod stack on the west side of level H, as near to the perimeter wall as possible. So if they're spotted out there, at least they can show proof of their delivery destination. Their cover story is supposed to be that Corey is in training with the other two. She hates it. She can poke about 100 holes in it. What if they ask why I need 2 couriers to train me and not just 1? She leans around the stacks of bioplastic packages as they ride down the distribution lift from E to H. We tell them that Mary Carey is nothing if not thorough, Quadim offers. Yeah, they're absolutely going to buy that, Corey mutters. She will admit she's angling to pick a fight. The lift ride is taking too long. She was primed to go, and now they're just sitting here. And as it turns out, distribution lifts are not nearly as crowded or colorful as the public lifts. Without anything to serve as a distraction, she's been entirely dependent on the little ball of righteous anger in her gut to keep her on the rails. That and thinking about her concealed LBAT. It's worked before, Quadim assures her. It's all in how you sell it, Radix pipes in. And trust me, darling, I can sell it. Even when they start pressing you, Corey raises a brow. Don't worry, Quadim says. No one's going to ask for details. The OOA has never once stopped me. Ha! Corey scoffs. That's because you're not a Mason. The OOA is different around Masons. I'm like a flashing target. Trust me, they're going to stop us. And they're going to ask a lot of questions. It'd be better if we split up and one of you went ahead. Look at you, little chief, Radix winks, giving orders like you run the place. Oh, he holds up his wrist port. Gotta take this, Gorsty. He moves to the back of the lift car. Radix and Quad have both taken calls now, and as Radix walks away, Corey hears him say the same thing she overheard Quad say not too long ago. She's okay. She knows they're talking about her, and she's 99% certain they're talking about her anxiety. That's what happens. When people see her panic, they tend to think they have to talk about it, and they tend to do that behind her back. She hates it. She looks to Quad. He's talking about me, isn't he? Quadim shrugs. He's reporting back to Gorsteban. He might mention you. Goose cake, don't lie to me. I know Miranda told you to keep an eye on me. It's just a guess, but Corey can tell it lands when Quad's eyes widen a fraction. I know she doesn't think I can do this. Quad averts his gaze. That's what I thought. Miranda saw me have a panic attack, and now she thinks I'm incapable. Quad looks surprised that she came out and said it. Panic attack. Most people are surprised when she says the words aloud and pretty damn uncomfortable too, but she does it anyway. She's learned that it's better to tackle it head on than let it fester. Festering leads to assumptions and avoidance and awkward moments. She'd rather just own up to her issues and move past it. Plus, it goes against everything Phelan taught her about projecting strength and covering weakness. Doing the opposite of what her Kagan mother taught her gives Corey a sense of profound satisfaction. I'm not incapable, she says to Quadim, but sometimes I do have a moment of incapacity, which I get through and come out the other side just fine. See, she holds up her arms as evidence of what? She's not entirely sure, but she moves when she's anxious, and this conversation has made her anxious. I can do this, she says firmly, trying to bolster herself up as much as convince Quad. So you can pass that along to Miranda, and you can stop babysitting me. Got it? Before Quad can say anything, Radix walks over, as serious as Corey has ever seen him. Of course, her mind jumps to conclusions. They've decided to call it off, bring her back in. They've decided she's too much of a liability. Damn them. I have news from Gorsteban, Radix says. Corey's heart pounds in her chest. We have to open box 4. What? That's not what she was expecting. What's box 4? Are you certain that's what he said? Quad asks, his voice taut. Radix nods solemnly, but then his expression suddenly shifts. He smiles wide. You know what this means. Your paramour's flying back to the nest. Who's flying? What's box 4? Corey asks again. Z is not going to be happy, Quad frowns. Not in the slightest, Radix laughs. But when Z sees you, all that'll change. Or rather, when Z sees you after I help you fix this. He gestures at Quad. You need the works, Professor. Shave, shower, shit, and shampoo, not necessarily in that order. Corey recoils. Ew, Radix. And what is kegging box 4? They both give her the same appraising look. Oh, come on, you have to tell me. Radix nods. Quad points to one of the boxes on his hovering delivery mech. That's box 4. Level E, AFX headquarters. Miranda looks at Gorsteban like he's going berserk, but he's not. He's completely calm, as clear-headed as he's ever been. He's dealing with the situation and doing what he has to do to make this work. In some ways, this is the easiest it's ever been to make a hard call. Previously, there have always been competing objectives, solid reasons he should hold back, the weighing of short-term gains versus long-term investments. But all that tension is gone now. There's no reason to hesitate, no real choice to make. They're all in. This is the end. His hollow message to Rena and Turi flashes in front of him, and behind that, Miranda's eyes flash. What? He asks. Are you really pulling the plug on our deepest cover? Yes. Once you do that, Gorsteban, you can't undo it. I know. We spent decades getting those agents in position, decades, and now you're pulling them up like blighted plants? Just one, don't exaggerate. The most important one, how will we ever get someone else in Skyling maintenance? We won't need someone else in Skyling maintenance, Gorsteban counters. We won't need people anywhere. We'll have done it, exposed the COA. Everything will be out in the open. That's why we have to do this. And what if this doesn't work? Gorsteban glowers. What happened to him and Miranda? What happened to her? Has she really changed this much? They've had their heads down for decades. They've been working away right alongside each other. But have they also been growing apart? How many times have we thought it would work before, she says, and how many times have we been wrong? I'm just saying, think about it before you pull Kava. Gorsteban feels the first fingers of Tangata rage stretching out from his core. I've thought about it, he says evenly, and I'm telling Rita and Turi to send the signal. He holds Miranda's gaze as he flicks his finger, shooting the hollow message to Rena and Turi, the 4 words that will start the process. I'm short on beans. They'll get this message, and they will instantly drop whatever they're doing on level K. They've been living there for nearly 9 years now, almost as deep a plant as Kava. They've been there this whole time, expressly for this purpose, for this moment. They'll go to the shop at the corner of 4th and Orcas. They'll buy 4 pouches of dark red kidney beans. They'll walk out of the shop and head north on Orcas. And when they come to the corner of 7th, they'll pause by the security mech. Rena's hack will trigger the Doberman model to rip into their bag and tear open their pouches, sending dark red kidney beans flying across the intersection. Kava will see it. That will be their sign to pull out. Just like Rena and Turi, Z will drop everything and walk away. Once Z's out, Radix can open box 4 and use their prints to get into the maintenance shaft. They'll be in, they'll get the data port, that's all they need to do. Of course, when it comes to the COA's attention that Kava's prints access a maintenance shaft on level H, when their domain is levels K through P, an alert will go out and the COA will send their best people to look into it. But by that time, they make any sense of what's going on, Gorsteban's people will be long gone from the shaft, and Kava will be in the safe house. The AFX will have what they need to blow this thing wide open. They will. Gorsteban is not wrong, not this time. Level H, lift platform. Corey can't take her eyes off box 4 as the digitized lift voice intones. Approaching level hotel, doors will open to the south. Prepare to exit on level hotel. She can hardly believe what Radix and Quad told her about what's in there. Prints from an agent who has been undercover for over a decade. Corey's mind is now only now starting to process how big an operation the AFX is, how serious they are about what they're doing. This is kegging phenomenal. Radix stands and moves towards the door. Not only will I get to witness the steamiest reunion of the decade, I also get to open box 4. I'll be the one to open it, Quad interjects. Radix smirks. You just want to be close to anything Z touched. Quadim grunts and color rises in his cheeks. Corey would have 100 questions about his mysterious paramour if box 4 wasn't right there in front of her. The box is the only thing she can think about right now. Apparently, they bring it on most missions anytime they might need the kind of access only the prince of a COA-sanctioned Skyling tech can give them. They've never had to use it before, or they've never been given clearance to use it. Gorstaban is clearing it for this mission. He's pulling one of his deepest sleepers to get Corey to the data port to save Lil. That thought is too much. It starts to happen. A chill goes down Corey's spine. Her legs tremble like they might give out. She reminds herself to breathe in and out. She can't do this right now. She has to stay above the place where her thoughts will spiral. Don't think about the pressure or the kegging once in a lifetime opening a box for or Lil. Don't give in to the fist gripping her heart. Focus on the immediate, on standing up, on walking to the door, on the ding that indicates the door is opening, on the ooh-wee, Radix waves a hand in front of his face. That is a special kind of foul. I forgot how hatefully rank the fertilizers can be down here. I guess the upside is that if you fart, no one will know. He laughs. I just did. Radix. It's liberating. Try it. Corey glowers at him, but silently thanks him. He might have just saved her with his antics. A good distraction can be an out for a panic spiral. She grabs hold with all her mental might, steels herself, and takes a long, deep breath of the pungent air. And then she gags. It's worse than she remembered. Oh, the things she'll put herself through just to stay grounded in her own head. Let's do this, Quad says, opening the door. She nods and follows him through onto the lift platform of level H. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. All right, and now we come to Kimberly Mitchell. Kimberly Mitchell loves journeys, real or imagined. She has traveled to 5 continents, always with a book in hand or backpack. Now she writes adventures to send her characters on journeys too. She is the author of the Pen and Quinn International Agents of Intrigue series from Vinspire Publishing and other books for middle grade and young adult readers. She lives in Portugal, where she can have international adventures of her own, and you can find more information on her website. Kimberly.
Thank you, Quentin and Heather and Kimberly number 2. Thank you so much for reading tonight. Those are both great. So it's always hard to close out as the last reader when you have such talented people before you, but I'll do my best. So tonight I'm going to be reading from my first mystery. It's called The Mystery of the Painted Book, and it's the Pen and Quinn International Agents of Intrigue series. And this is book 1, chapter 1. Oh, and I want to say I'm a Caucasian female with wavy blonde hair, blue eyes, and I'm sitting in a Christmas tree colored green shirt with a black background behind me. Pen held her breath and punched the enter key on her laptop. A notification popped up on the screen. Your website is now live. A slow, guilt-ridden smile spread over her face. No boring summer days spent cleaning house for Abuela or wandering Abuelito's dusty museum. It didn't matter that she and Quinn had to spend the summer with their grandparents. Pen didn't need to find adventure. Now adventure would come to them. Pen read over her own words glowing on the computer screen. P&Q, International Agents of Intrigue. Are you searching for an archaeological wonder? A stolen painting? Do you have questions concerning items of antiquity? Hire P&Q for all your ancient and modern investigations. We are now accepting inquiries from Mexico City. There, she'd done it. International investigators shouldn't have to be told where to spend the summer by their mother. Pen. The bathroom door connecting Pen and Quinn's rooms creaked open. Her twin brother wandered into the room and flipped the light on. She flinched, shading her eyes from the glare. Quintus, she shouted and rubbed her eyes, trying to adjust. Why do you have to sit in the dark like some psycho stalker? Quinn asked. He circumnavigated a pile of t-shirts on the floor. Pen's purple suitcase lay open on her bed, its only contents a soccer ball and Quinn's New England Revolution jersey. She picked his jersey up and held it in front of her face. This is mine. I've been looking for it all evening while I packed, Quinn said. Pen pushed the jersey away. I'm busy. You realize we're leaving tomorrow morning, right? He asked. Their mother had sent them upstairs after dinner with strict instructions to pack, instructions she had ignored. She would wait until the last minute and force Mama to realize that sending them to their grandparents for the summer wasn't fair, not when everyone else in the family got to do what they wanted. Penn turned from the computer and gave Quinn a look that would strip the paint off any of his artwork. Have I forgotten we're being shipped to Mexico to be babysat all summer? What do you think? Her brother pushed her empty purple suitcase off the foot of the bed and sat down. He removed his glasses and polished them, something he always did when he was thinking about what to say next. Penn sighed. She shouldn't be angry with Quinn. None of this was his fault. What are you working on anyway? He put his glasses on and leaned over to stare at the laptop. She spun the chair around and faced her twin. His curly hair, that Mama complained was too long, stuck up as usual, and their mother's chocolate eyes blinked rapidly behind the black frames. They sat askew on his nose, out of whack from their last soccer game at the end of the school year. Quinn was the goalkeeper for St. Mary's Saints, their school soccer team. He'd grown several inches this year. She hardly let on how much that irritated her, as she'd always been the taller twin. Penn was the forward and only one of 2 girls on the team, a fact she was extremely proud of. She caught sight of the gleaming gold medal pinned to the wall beside her bed. They played the championship game only last weekend, and her brother had made a fantastic diving save seconds from the end of the game to preserve St. Mary's perfect record and win the title. Michael Blaylock, the other forward on the team, hugged Penn when the game was over. Her face warmed thinking about that hug. And then she remembered she wouldn't be at soccer camp with Michael this summer. Instead, she'd spend it with her twin brother, stuck in their grandparents' old house in Mexico City. Well, it wouldn't be boring if she had anything to say about it, and she needed Quinn on board with her idea because every good investigator had a partner. She scooted the chair over and he joined her, squatting down at the desk so he could view her laptop. Penn examined the webpage again while she waited for her brother's reaction. She'd shamelessly used his artwork to decorate both sides of the page. Vivid drawings of the Parthenon, the Eiffel Tower, the Great Wall, and other famous sites the twins had visited jumped to life. In the center, a black screen held a few bold words in white: P&Q, International Agents of Intrigue. A text box for contact information sat beneath the writing. Seconds ticked by, and Quinn still hadn't said anything. Well, Penn finally broke the silence. What do you think? She bit her lip, dreading his answer. He sometimes hated her ideas. Okay, most of the time. It's fantastic. She kicked her feet onto the desktop and leaned back, flattered at the admiration in her twin's voice. Then she caught the frown on his face. But what? But we can't be international agents. We're 12. So, she protested, you know art, I know technology. We both know a lot of history and archaeology and all kinds of stuff. Thanks to Costas. Of course, Penn waved this comment away. She was still mad at their Greek tutor for breaking his leg 2 weeks ago on an archaeological dig. That's what caused this whole summer with the abuelos in the first place. Usually the twins spent their summers with Costas, following their mother around on dig sites. Penn swung her legs off the desk, scattering a stack of books across the room, but she ignored them. I didn't want to include too much information, to avoid Dad and Archie, Quinn added. He collected the books and returned them to the desk. Exactamente, she said, and then realized she'd answered in Spanish. She'd already have to use it all summer. Now what? He asked. She crisscrossed her legs in her chair and rested her chin on her hands. Well, now we wait. They both stared at the screen as if a request would magically appear with a wave of a wand, but nothing happened. Well, someone has to contact us first. They'll probably send an email. She clicked the laptop closed. Quinn nodded, but he gave her a doubtful look. I'm going to finish packing. He pointed at the empty suitcase and the pile of clothes on her floor. International investigators or not, we still have to get on a plane to Mexico tomorrow. I know, she sighed. He grabbed his jersey and went back to his room. Penn spun all the way around in her chair and thunked her sambas on the floor to stop herself. She stared at the laptop, but she didn't open it. Probably no one would look at the website. No one would hire them. She'd spend her entire summer dusting Abuela's already pristine bookshelves and learning how to make the perfect tortilla. Penn grabbed some clothes off her floor and threw them into her suitcase. She added her worn copies of her Alex Rider books. If she had nothing else to do, she could read about Alex's adventures again. But maybe, just maybe, someone in Mexico had a mystery that needed solving. She knew she and Quinn were the international agents to do it. Okay, so that was chapter 1 of book 1, The Mystery of the Painted Book. So now I want to shift to my newest book, which is the third mystery, The Mystery of the Lost Greek Treasure. And it just released in October. We're going to start in the middle because I wanted to give you something from Quinn's perspective, because it's always important to get the perspective of the other twin. So Penn and Quinn are in Greece in this one, obviously, and searching for a lost treasure. And right now they're in the middle of the bay, and they've just gotten off a boat swimming towards a mysterious cave. And I should say that Costas's grandson, Nikos, who is 10, is also with them. When Quinn got up that morning and prepared to go to the beach, he hadn't expected to be swimming fully clothed amidst sharp rocks and foaming waves, but that was exactly the position he found himself in. The water was cold, not as cold as the winter water around Boston and the Cape, but cold enough his teeth chattered. Quinn gritted his teeth and focused on swimming. He steered clear of the large rocks. Nikos and Penn were ahead of him, their life vests providing buoyancy. They'd shed their heavy coats and hats, but left on tennis shoes because of the rocks. Quinn wished Nikos had warned them they might be swimming. He would have worn something other than jeans. They threatened to tug him under the water, and he was glad for his life vest. They swam between two large rocks right towards the looming cave mouth. The cave looked like a single black fang jabbing into the water. Quinn swam harder and caught up with Penn just as she and Nikos entered the cave. The water level inside was the same as the tide outside, but the cave was darker, with just enough light coming in from the entrance that they could see that it was much larger than it looked outside. Wow, Quinn said, panting. He couldn't tell, but it looked like it stretched all the way back into the cliffs, and overhead, a gap in the rocks let a shaft of light beam down. Let's see how far we can go, Penn said. She swam forward before Quinn could protest. Nikos followed. Quinn sighed and treaded water. Even in the cave, the waves rolled and bobbed him up and down. The current also pulled at him, trying to push him into the darkness faster than he wanted to go. Everything in him said they should turn around. He knew enough about underwater caves to know they could be dangerous when the tide shifted, and it looked like the tide was starting to turn. He glanced back at the entryway. He could just see the sharp rocks surrounding the cave. They looked larger now. Quinn swam to Penn and Nikos. Penn was higher in the water than Nikos. He realized she was standing. There's a shelf of rock here, Penn said, her voice high-pitched with excitement. She slogged forward and walked until her ankles were in the water. She reached the back of the cavern and nearly the end of their scarce light. There's definitely a crack here that goes deeper into the rocks, Penn called out, but I can't see how far it goes without a flashlight. I wonder if it goes uphill. Quinn and Nikos joined her on the rock ledge. Water poured from Quinn's clothing and dripped onto the wet rock. He shivered and peered into the cavern beyond Penn. It was dark, but he could hear water sloshing through it. We can't go in there, he said firmly. We don't have the right equipment, and it's full of water. He looked at his watch and realized he should have taken it off on the boat. It was supposed to be waterproof. He hoped so. It's nearly 11. What time does the tide go out? Quinn didn't want to get trapped by the water. Nikos pursed his lips. It should be falling. We're reaching low tide. He smiled at Quinn. It's okay. You're just nervous. I'm cold, Quinn said. Penn sighed. Even if the tide is falling, Quinn's right. We can't go farther without better equipment. She licked her lips. And dry clothing. Penn pointed up to the crack in the rocks where the light beamed down. Do you think we could find that from the shore? Nikos nodded. We can go back to Paralia Glossa. It's not far from there. The small beach? Quinn asked. He nodded without waiting for an answer. That sounds good to me. A shout drew their attention to the cave entry. Was that Demetrius? Penn asked. I couldn't hear what he said. Nikos cocked his head and listened. The next shout reached all of them. The rocks, Demetrius shouted. You must hurry. Nikos' eyes widened. The low tide, it must be, how do you say it? Making the rocks bigger. Exposing them, Quinn said, catching on. Oh no, the boat, it'll be grounded. They splashed back into the cave water and swam for the entrance. Quinn noticed right away the water wasn't even waist deep anymore. As the tide ran out, they were able to half swim, half walk out of the entry. Demetrius waved frantically at them. The boat had drifted closer to the large rocks near the cave, and now even more rocks were visible, dangerously close to the boat. The anchor's stuck, he shouted. A wave caught the boat and nearly toppled him. Demetrius caught his balance and motioned the children in. They swam hard. Quinn found it difficult to stay away from the rocks. With less water, the waves rolling in were more forceful, and he wasn't as high in the water. He felt the rocks beneath his shoes several times, and once his knee collided painfully with a rock underwater. Ouch, Quinn said. Penn looked at him. She had almost reached the boat. When Quinn got there, Demetrius was helping her climb inside. Nikos hung onto the side of the boat. I must dive underwater, Demetrius said. If we don't get the anchor unstuck, the waves will drive us into the rocks and tear into the boat. You will have to hold the boat steady so it doesn't hit the rocks. We can dive, Nikos said. We're already wet. Quinn stared at Nikos. We? Nico shrugged. I can. Yaya taught me how to hold my breath for deep sea diving. Wait here. He paused and frowned. Put your hand on the anchor line. If you feel 3 tugs in a row, come help. Nikos unclipped his life jacket and pushed it into the boat. I don't know if this is a good idea, Penn said. Quinn couldn't agree more and was glad his twin was being sensible for once. It didn't matter. Nikos took a deep breath and dove. In a second, he had disappeared beneath the waves. Quinn grabbed the anchor chain. It was already taut. How would he know if Nikos needed help? They waited for what felt like several minutes, but that had to be impossible. Nobody could hold their breath that long. The chain shifted beneath Quinn's fingers. Was that a tug? 1, he counted to himself. It shifted again. 2. Dread grew inside him. Quinn was a good swimmer, but that didn't mean he wanted to dive under the cold Ionian Sea. He took off his glasses and handed them to Penn. It's been too long, she whispered. Then it came again, a strong tug. 3. Demetrius peered over the edge to Quinn. I must keep the boats off the rocks, he said. Quinn nodded and unclipped his life jacket, which he handed to Penn. Be careful, she said. The worry on her face made her look like Mama. Quinn took a deep breath and dove under the water. The cold enveloped his face and head and nearly made him lose his breath. He kicked hard and forced his eyes open in the seawater. He saw a shape beneath them and swam for it. Nikos was gripping the chain, his eyes wide, his face red. He pointed frantically to his foot. Somehow the anchor had rolled on top of his shoe. Quinn grabbed the chain and planted his feet against a rock. He tugged hard and Nikos did the same. The anchor slowly slid off Nikos' foot. Quinn grabbed the boy's elbow and together they kicked to the surface. When their heads broke above the waves, both boys coughed and gasped for air. Quinn, Nikos, are you okay? Penn shouted. Quinn sputtered through the water. I am. Nikos grabbed the side of the boat. I'm okay. When I pulled the anchor from the rock, it caught my shoelace and I could not lift it by myself. He turned to Quinn. Thank you. How did you hold your breath that long? Quinn asked. I couldn't hold it anymore and I wasn't under nearly as long as you. Nikos coughed again and smiled. Yaya, she wasn't just a treasure hunter. She was also a famous diver. Your great-grandmother gets more interesting by the minute, Penn said. She helped both of them into the boat, where they all shivered in the wind. I think that is enough exploring for one day, Demetrius said. Your grandfather would not be happy with me if I returned without you. Mama either, Penn whispered. She squeezed Quinn's shoulder, and he nodded. His twin didn't need to say anything else for him to know how close he and Nikos had come to staying with that anchor at the bottom of the Ionian Sea. And that's it.
Thank you so much to Heather, Kimberly, and Kimberly. Let us all now turn on our microphones and give an audible round of applause.
Good job, guys.
Buy some books or listen to a serialized novel on Kindle Vella. And thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We know that there's so many other amazing things that you could be doing on a Thursday, but you're here for literature and that means a lot. So thank you again. So with that, we will say goodnight to you all. Have a safe and healthy evening. And thank you again to our 3 readers.